All righty, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the third annual California College Affordability Summit. My name is Jenny Wentz, and I will be the monitor tech for this breakout session. I'm here to provide virtual support for both you and the presenter during the presentation. All attendees have been muted, so we ask that you please put your questions in the chat or wait until the end of the presentation if time allows. You can raise your hand in the icon and we'll be happy to unmute you and ask you and answer your questions. Let's see. So should you have a toolbar at the bottom of your screen, you can contact me, search my name, send a direct private message. I'll do my best to provide any kind of assistance. It is my pleasure to now introduce you to our presenters. So let's talk about the college affordability, empowering students and families to be informed decision makers, presented by Jean Marie Levy and John Timrat.
All right, thank you everyone for joining us today. Just doing a quick intro again. From the Money Think team side, we have myself, John Timrat, the Partner Success Manager, and we also have Jean Marie, who will be joining us as the Product Designer. We're excited to talk to you all about today, about how to empower those conversations and then the tool that we have that can help you support through these conversations. So quick overview of the agenda. We're going to do a quick check-in. We'll have an icebreaker question to get started. We'll do a brief intro of Money Think. Just for those of you who don't know who Money Think is, we'll talk about the college affordability problem at a quick high level. And then we'll really get into
I feel like you should work for these people.
And then we'll go into how Decided can help navigate this problem. And we'll talk about things to consider when having these important conversations with your students and families. Now, first, to get us started, we would love to hear from you. So what are some challenges that you are currently facing while helping students talk to their families about college? Please type in the response in the chat. And if you're not currently supporting students with conversations with families, feel free to let us know that as well. And if that is something that you are looking to incorporate when supporting your students. And we'll be looking in the chat for some of the responses to highlight some of the things that you all are pointing out. We got some responses just acknowledging the difficulty of parents' willingness to let them bring their tax forms. So for us to help support them as advisors, that is a real one. Went through that as well. Language barriers being one of those as well. Yeah. And the idea of 4 years being too expensive. Sometimes those are maybe incorrect assumptions or maybe working from limited information. So yeah. Students are eager to start working right away and seeing college as a distraction. Yep. Yep, being apprehensive about government forms. Opting out to community college due to affordability. Lack of motivation on the student's end as well. Feeling overwhelmed. And then credit scores, how fast it will affect the family as well. These are great responses. Thank you for bringing these out. I know we see them as well. So I'm glad to see that we're all working from a similar vantage point. So it's how do we all collectively put our efforts together. Now I'm going to pass it on to Jean Marie for us to just do a quick intro so that we can get started.
Thanks, John. Hi, everyone. It's so great to share this virtual space with you and kind of let you all a little bit more about who we are and the tools that we have. So who are we as Money Think? We are a nonprofit that provides really easy to use tools for students and families. We have been a financial capability leader for underserved youth since 2008. And since then, Money Think, its funders and partners have worked towards student-focused financial wellness and equity. So we wanted to talk briefly about the college affordability problem. This is a problem that I'm certain that many of you all are aware of due to the work that you do. We know that completing a college degree pays off. It can be a great way to propel a student's career and even change their life and their family circumstances. But applying to college, as you all just talked about, is a really daunting process that puts a stressor on the whole family. I know for me, as the first in my family to go to college with a language barrier as well, this process was super confusing. There were so many deadlines to remember, applications to fill out. I didn't know what like an affordable college was and to find one that best fit my needs. So like a lot of first gen students, I didn't know how to bring up these concerns with my parents, and all of it was really overwhelming. As you can see, we know that at MoneyThink, we know that like getting a college degree is critical to student success. And so this process can be super overwhelming, especially when you're navigating it alone. So some statistics we wanted to point out: each year, 2 million students drop out of college due to financial hardship, each carrying an average of nearly $10,000 in debt, and none having a degree or credential to show for it. Historically, underrepresented students borrow at an alarming rate of 87% to fund their education, compared to 60% of white students. So we wanted to pause here. We know these numbers can be shocking, and wanted to ask if anyone had any questions thus far through our presentation. I don't think so. Keep moving forward. Great. So one of the reasons why this process is so hard and confusing are due to these financial aid award letters. They continue to be the primary barrier, kind of what everyone was noting about, like all these documents that you have to gather, to present, to bring, to upload. And there's just a lot of apprehension about, bringing forms to school with your social security number on it, or having someone else help you do that. The nation's $1.7 trillion student debt problem is fueled by confusing and unclear pricing and college costs. Even things like the terminology of award letters, we found that when we spoke to families and students, a lot of them are confused of what an award letter even is, because it is often called a financial aid package, a merit letter, a school aid offer, and it can come in various forms, whether that's email, actual paper that's sent to your home address. And we had decided to have, and MoneyThink, have a whole guide talking about this that we can go in later. But I know for me, again, these letters with the tons of numbers on them were really overwhelming and scary. My parents did the best they could, tell me understand this. But again, since they've never been through this process themselves, we were really confused of what is free money and what is a loan. And I, as a student with a lot of students that identify as this, had a hard time even bringing this up to them, because I didn't want to add extra stressors to their life. We at MoneyThink want a world free of student loan debt and believe every student has the right to an affordable education. And so we'll talk about a little bit later about the tool that we have to help that. Great. So kind of just to dive in a bit, this is an example of an award letter that perhaps you all have seen as well. But when a student, if you could think, if a student is presented with this, it's really confusing. It can be really overwhelming. And I kind of wanted to ask, now in the chat, when you look at, or in the chat rather, when you look at the first box, what is the free money that you're receiving from this institution? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that Pell Grant, yeah, lots of people. Exactly. But, and then so we all understand oh, that's a Pell Grant that we're receiving, but it's really interesting that the number at the bottom says 0, estimated out of pocket expense. So if you're a family or a student, you're oh, great, school is covered. But when actuality, there's a lot of loans that are a part of it. And these unsubsidized and subsidized terminology, what does that exactly mean? And how can you navigate that process? So we're going to move on to the next award letter. This one does a little bit of a better job to kind of differentiate between what is free money and what is a loan, rather something that you would have to pay back. So can anyone see the amount? I know it might be a little hard to view, but what is the total amount that you are responsible to pay? It's kind of highlighted in the green box. Yeah. Exactly, because the only free money that you're getting was around $7,500, which is that gift aid. So this one does a little bit better job with colors to kind of try to differentiate that. But again, if you're a student and a family, how do you make sense of this information? And you all do this day to day, but we really are hoping that students themselves feel empowered to have these conversations with their family members, with the assistance of college access organizations or advisors, et cetera. So let's go to the last one.
Right before the last one, Jimmy, I just wanted to point out, double down at what Nicole just pointed out, the term out of pocket. That's really confusing to students. Also, what's left is really confusing to students and parents when they're seeing this award letter, right? Especially when they're being identified, the loans being optional, but they're not optional if you're trying to make it zero, especially if you're first gen student or a Pell eligible student who may not have other resources to go to. So just want to double down on some of the comments that are being made by the advisors.
Great. So this is an example of an effective award letter in an ideal world. It defines total cost of attendance. It's easy to understand, separates aid by type, and the next steps are really clear and outlined. So although this is better, it still could be perhaps a little daunting to talk about these large numbers. And even that, as we all know in this space, everyone's family's financial situation is very different. And so trying to talk about numbers that perhaps, you've never seen before can be really daunting. Anything else you want to add with this one, John?
Yeah, just to double down on that again. Just making this process easier is the first step, but that does not mean that it's simple to understand for our students and families who may not know the terminology or even the potential next steps, right? So one of those next steps is really understanding for the parents to understand if there's any Parent Plus loans. Those aren't guaranteed like the federal subsidized, unsubsidized loans. So there's extra steps that families would have to take. And there's also the impact of some of the terms that those conditions apply for, right? And even with work study, many of our students don't understand that, yes, you want to accept work study, but it's not guaranteed, right? It's the fact that you have to apply for the job, work those hours, and how that may can benefit them to afford college, but there's extra steps they might have to take, right? And these are all the important conversations that can better support the student to be confident in their choice, but also better enable the family to understand where they can come in to support the student, right? So then they're not working in isolation and they don't feel so overwhelmed, but what are the parts that they can manage and that they can have an active role in playing at?
Yeah, so does anyone have any questions at this point? Great. I will pass it back then to John.
All right, thanks. So now the big question is, what is an affordable college? And kind of how we spoke about the award letters right now, affordability of colleges can vary enormously, right? Not only by the price and the award letters that are being given, but also the context of the student and the family situation. So affordability can be sometimes a moving target. So there's no easy way for students to sometimes differentiate between the affordable quality colleges versus the expensive schools that potentially have poor outcomes. Now, when it comes to money thinking, how we define affordability, we want to just talk about that methodology and the calculation so we're all understanding how we get to that process. We define the affordability of college based on what the gap or what is left after your scholarships grants have been applied towards your tuition, fees, housing, and meal. So when we say housing and meal, whether this is due to the school, that means you're living on campus, whether you're living at home, or whether you're living on off-campus housing. This is a recent new change for us because we want to make sure that the affordability was really tracking the expenses you were going to have to pay. So there's there's less wiggle room when it comes to tuition, right? You're going to have to pay some form of tuition. You're going to have some sort of housing and meals. When it comes to other expenses like books, textbooks, right, and certain transportations, you may, for books, you may opt out or you may share books with your classmates or others. So you can have a lot more control in that, but you're not necessarily eliminate completely. So we want to make sure when we're comparing those costs, we're looking at those big buckets that we just mentioned. So if you're a gap, that means after all your scholarships, what's left is about $7,500 or less. We will mark that as an affordable option because you can manage that between some of the federal subsidized loans you're able to get as a student and some work study. And our guidance is that you don't take any more than 5,500 in the Fed sub and subsidized loan. Therefore, you're not relying on the Parent Plus loan, which you have to apply for. It's based on creditworthiness. Your parents have to apply for that. And then you're not working more than 10 hours a week. Now, for somewhat affordable, essentially you'd be breaking one of the guidance that we have. This does not mean that a student shouldn't for any reason at all take more than that, but it really depends circumstantial, right? It depends on the major you're taking, your career trajectory, how many years you need to go to school for your specific career as well. Now, when it comes to not affordable, you're really breaking both of our guidance. So you're potentially taking out more than 5,500 loans, and you're potentially working more than 20 hours of work. Well, we've seen this happen with students. That means you're spending a lot more time working in the classroom, which means it can be detrimental to your impact doing well in the classroom. But even more importantly, you're going to miss out on certain social aspects, networking aspects that really can start your career in the future, right? So you're missing out on those opportunities that other students are getting. So that's kind of how we are envisioning our affordability labels. And I see in the chat, there was a question, taking more than 5,000 per year. Yes, we're saying the annual amount is you don't take any more than 5,500 would be our guidance to label that an affordable college. Doesn't look like we have any more questions in there. Okay, so we want to highlight this. So then as you see our tool and we talk about affordability, and we're talking about labels, this is the understanding we're coming from. Again, these are our recommendations and guidelines to help support students understand how they can compare college options that they're viewing. Now I'm going to pass it back to Jean Marie to walk us through our tool Decided that helps students to view this information and try and make sense of it so that it can be easier to have these conversations, not only with the advisors, but more importantly, with their families as well.
Thanks, John. We wanted to talk a lot about, like our methodology and our practice, because we wanted to explain further what our why is and what we hope to accomplish with our tool. And it is just that, to help make this really impactful decision that families and students are making much easier, and to come up with a visual tool that can help folks identify which school is more affordable for them. Before I do we'll jump into the demo itself, but kind of wanted to show at a macro level scale what it does. But essentially, Decided for Students helps students compare colleges, confirm costs. Students can search and filter, upload their financial aid award letters for automatic translation to see that affordability rating that John just spoke about. And then they can review and compare letters side by side. And then lastly, they can confirm their enrollment status as well. So again, they're comparing these schools and they can dive deeper into other fit factors. We know that affordability is a big one, but we also know from talking to students as well that a lot of students are very concerned with diversity and a sense of belonging on campus. They want to make sure that students, where they go, students look like them and they can feel at home. And we're also we have a new way to keep track of their journey. So like we've talked about, there's so many deadlines and things that you all help students with, but we really want the students to kind of bring their families alongside them as well. So these are visuals that they can show their families as they're going through the process. So things like, you've been accepted to a school, what's the next step? You're going to upload your, financial aid award letter, having a list of colleges readily and accessibly available to talk to your family members about, as well as a suggested list of guides, which is like content that we've made to give those easy talking points for things that can be really daunting, like talking about taking out loans. And we'll share a student testimonial, and then we'll jump into the product itself. But we talk to students all the time, and one student says that Decided tells you how much aid you are getting, how much you are paying, and how affordable it is going to be. It is so relieving. And we really just wanted to alleviate a lot of the emotional stress that can come from these conversations. And I'll walk through the tool and kind of show you about which areas, especially, that you as advisors can empower your students to have those conversations.
Right before we get there, I see some questions in the chat. I can take the first one. So one of the questions was, what about students who may fall under the middle class scholarship or may not be necessarily Pell eligible? So with our affordability chart that we've updated and the guidance, again, this guidance will go out to all students, whether they are Pell or Dreamers. It's really for them to actually compare how the school is valuing them, right? So how much money is that school giving them? What is the gap that's left? And again, we're going to acknowledge that for certain families, situations, it may look different, right? They may have extra money. Maybe they're coming from grandparents or somewhere else, or savings plans that they might have, or maybe they are willing to take a little bit more in loans out. We have guides to help support those next steps. But again, our framework is, whenever possible, is can you be in an institution where you don't have to overburden yourself too much in loans? So that's kind of the way we are phrasing that. And it's not a hard line, just because it's been already acknowledged in the chat. Every family circumstances may be different, may look different. What you're able to have as your resources or your support systems that you may have that can guide you and support you financially and in other ways as well. Is there any other questions that I'm missing, Ben, or was that the biggest one?
No, I think that's it so far.
Okay.
And also Ben is on the call to support us with these questions, but he serves as the product manager for MoneyThink. Great. So I'm going to hop into a demo. I'm going to share my screen.
And please do keep putting the questions in the chat. We want to engage and answer as much as we can and make it as interactive as possible.
Absolutely. And also like with feedback, we are so interested in how to make our tools better and to better serve advisors like you all. And so if anything comes up, please let us know. A lot of the features that we have and even the current ones that are rolled out this last few months have been a direct correlation to things that advisors have told us. So please let us know how we can do better. But this is the student facing tool side. So when you're a student, I'm not going to walk through the login process, but if you have a student who is interested in seeing, their affordability label, et cetera, perhaps you're just starting out in your college search process. So I'll pretend I'm a student, you're interested in staying in California, and you want to kind of filter this down further. So we have a filter process. You're interested in going to a public 4-year institution, and you yourself identify as Hispanic or Latina. So you're interested in going to an HSI school. So with that, there are many schools in California that fit those factors that you are kind of interested about. So we show that here. And I in particular am interested in looking for a UC. So I'm interested in UC Santa Barbara, heard great things about it. So I'm going to go ahead and add this to my list. Great. And then you'll see that we have a new label. So as you're a student kind of filtering and sorting through colleges, you'll get this new tag here that this is a new school. So here is kind of like what we spoke about all of the fit factors that potentially a student might have, not just the affordability. So I'm going to come back to the top later, but I could look for majors that I'm potentially interested in. I've heard that UC Santa Barbara has a stellar econ program, so I'm going to click that. Here I can see my college costs, and kind of like what we were talking about earlier with terminology, if some of the terms are really confusing, we have these tooltips that allow students to kind of, oh, this is how you got this number by clicking this here. You could also view the graduation rate, especially since I will show this right now, but we give students the opportunity to self-identify their ethnicity. And we do note that there's only a few that they can choose from due to the data that we have. But that will help students kind of, like I was speaking about before, identify their overall sense of belonging on campus, which is spoken about here in this diversity component. With 63% of students identify as students of color, of 45% of students identify as Hispanic. So again, we found it great importance that students kind of understand where they would fit on campus and what kind of programs might be offered by their institution. Other things. So currently right now, we haven't uploaded our award letter that we have. So it's giving me the total estimated cost before financial aid. But before doing this, as a student's kind of searching around and understanding like, oh, like this school isn't, that far away from my home. I could still come home potentially on weekends, which will make my parents happy, et cetera. And so we spoke about guides as well. And so that's here at the bottom, where students can quickly click on any one of these to kind of have those conversations with their family. We'll go into that a bit more later. Okay, so sorry, I can't see the chat at the same time. Cool. All right, so I'm
We're
going
good to
to
keep going. I'll let you know if anything comes up.
Okay, perfect. I'm going to go ahead and add an award letter. So you won't see this part on my screen.
And then Ben, in the chat, would you be able to let the audience know what type of images we take for award letters that students can use? Thanks.
Totally. So here you can upload a JPEG, PNG, or PDF of your award letter. And then I will go ahead and click done. I've decided that I want to live in a dorm on campus to get that full college experience that I've heard a lot about. I'm going to click next. And so currently what the tool is doing is it's taking the award letter itself, it's looking through it and identifying what is free money, what is a loan, and what is upload complete. Here we go. Let's check our results. Perfect. So then a student has, or I mean, the student has the ability to look at my grants and scholarships that I'm getting. It looks like I'm getting a Pell Grant, a university grant, and I could see this grand total down here. If everything looks great, I can click yes, let's go. If things look a little odd or off, I have the ability to say, oh, I need some help. And then also go back to view the award letter. Perhaps if a student uploaded something, an image that we don't support, we do identify that and we have someone look at that and get back to the student for that additional support. So it isn't like if you upload something completely wrong, that's it, you're done. We do have that loop that we come back to try to help students. So great. So now you can see that it looks like this school is affordable for me. 27,315 is covered out of this larger number. Again, how did we get this? We identified this here with our affordability calculator. And students are able to see, oh, tuition is 37.3% of my costs. Housing is a larger amount, and have the ability to kind of click around here. I want to kind of touch on this the most because as we were talking about the award letters and all the numbers and how do you identify as a student, how do you talk to your family members about this? We were speaking with a student recently who at this moment in time, they were unsure of potentially where they might be going. But when they saw this visual here, they were like, wow, this is a great tool that this is a picture that I can show my parents this, look, this is affordable. This is where, the money is going. So it helps kind of illuminate and kind of demystify a lot of the things that we talked about with college costs, like not knowing where this money is coming from and where it's being expected to come from, et cetera. So we still do need this amount here. And so how will I potentially pay for this? I can take out some loans like we've spoken about the maximum, and I can work part-time. And so this is calculated based on working a maximum of 20 hours a week. And again, we have guides and content to kind of give students talking points to their families of if they're kind of apprehensive about them working in school, because we know that going to school is already a full-time job. And then again, here, this is where things start to get really interesting, in that it gives you the exact number of in-state tuition and fees. Okay, I'm just checking the chat for some questions. And again, yeah, your grants and scholarships are here as well. And so at this point in time, if I were like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I really want to go to this school, you can let us know if you've been enrolled. I'm not going to click that yet, but I'll quickly touch on the progress tracker as well. So this is something.
Jean Marie, before you go to that, quick
Yeah.
question. Does the guide at the top right here and below change based on what?
That's a good, yeah. So this guide here will, so this for Tulane University of Louisiana, I am interested in the school, but I don't necessarily have a financial aid award letter yet. Perhaps like I don't know where it is. This guide will show you that ability to help find that financial aid award letter versus at UC Santa Barbara. I've already uploaded my award letter. I am potentially ready to go to this school. So we give you a guide that's based on Ultimate Guide to Loans, which is helpful a lot, again, for those talking points. It's really about like building out the student's experience on where big major points, as you all know, with their families that can come from them either stopping out and even just the application process itself. So that's a good point, John. Anything else you would want me to highlight here before?
Yeah, just even below at the bottom, we also reference other guides that may be relevant because we know some students and families may be not wanting to take loans out. So it's what's the process for them to get more aid? A lot of our students don't know that they can write an appeal process. So we go through that understanding. Also how they can save certain money. So understanding life budget, which we'll go in a little bit later, gives them follow-up steps that they can try and take as well.
Yeah. And I will say that regarding their self-identifying as ethnicity as well as a zip code, we don't ask that right away in the sign-up process. Rather, that's data that we kind of ask them as they're going on. If they want to see, you know, how far away it is, they can enter their zip code. So we've heard from students that sometimes giving too much information, they're a little apprehensive of, as well as families as well. So there's that. And then I could also, let's see. Now, if I want to kind of compare these schools side by side, we give that ability here. Great. So in this, this student is very interested in, lots of schools. And so this is where that side-by-side comparison is really helpful. If a student is in between two institutions and perhaps they're getting a lot of family pressures or even just societal pressures even to go to a certain school over another, we know that, affordability isn't the only thing that is the one factor they're considering. But again, it helps start that conversation, this visual representation here about taking like all the information into this big decision that they're making and making it a lot more digestible. So in the side-by-side comparison, you have things like graduation rates, as well as, again, diversity, potential earnings after graduation, and the ability to see really quickly what you owe. Let's see. And students can drag and drop a lot of these, as well as favorite their favorite school that they're interested in. And we will talk we'll talk briefly about the advisor portion of our tool as well. Great. So again, students can see a list and a progress tracker here where they can easily identify, sorry, I'm working on one screen. A progress tracker here where students can really quickly identify where they are in the process. So perhaps, if a family member or even an advisor asks them like, oh, like, how's it going? Students can quickly log in and see like, it looks, I've uploaded an award letter. Here are some suggested guides that are based on where they're currently at in the progress. So perhaps if a student is only added certain colleges, we give them a list of tools and guides, which I'll just click into to show you, that kind of quickly shows them, things that they need to do. There's a lot of content out there. So we're trying our best to, produce things. Oops, sorry, I don't know what I just pressed. Great. So here we go. Perfect. And then also we do support 2-year schools. So you have the ability to toggle between 2-year programs. So if they're interested in going to any of the community colleges, we do support that ability. We know that's a lot of students, that is like the route they want to go. And so we found a need to support that. Let's see. Lastly, I'll show you where the students could update their profile information like zip code and ethnicity. And yeah, continue to search through the process. So perhaps I'm ready to say yes to UC Santa Barbara. I can click enrolled. And so we give you congrats, like you're going to UC Santa Barbara, and give you, again, guides that are based on that progress. So things about, okay, well, now perhaps I might need to get more scholarships or learn about often on-campus jobs. How do I talk with my family about money? So we give you tips and conversations here. Great. Anything else, John, that you would like me to highlight?
No, I think we're good.
Perfect. I'm gonna go ahead and stop. Sure. You can reshare. So for this, now that I showed you the tool, again, a student got several financial aid award letters that they've uploaded into Decided. This student's top choice is San Francisco State. They live in the Bay Area, and they're really concerned about leaving the Bay Area as they are getting a lot of family pressures to stay close to home. So if you're advising the student, what are some other factors that you would like them to consider? John will kind of discuss a little bit more about this, but we just kind of wanted to get some quick chat feedback about other things that you potentially see in this screenshot that are kind of interesting for you to note.
And it'd be great to hear in the chat as well, like what do you see visually here or from what Jean Marie showed that can help you encourage the conversation with your student to have it with their family, right? To get them an alignment of the similarities and goals that they might have, shared goals that they might have both together. So the students' concerns are they don't want to move too far away from home, right? Mm-hmm. Their family also wants them to stay near their home, and affordability is a top priority.
Yeah, so it said someone notes UC Irvine is the most affordable option, right? Mm-hmm. And San Francisco State's grad rates are a little concerning when you see them side by side.
Yeah, so these are great points to make. Again, is to just showcase that, these decisions may not be clear cut day and night, right? So it's having this conversation and thought process of what are your priorities, and then helping the students understand what their top priorities are so they can express that to their families, especially if their families at the end of the day, if they want them to graduate and be successful, then if the student could show them, hey, maybe the place I need to go may not be near home, but it has all the things that I need to get to where we all collectively want me to be at. So we'll go to the next. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, just out of curiosity, are you aware of any schools that have piloted the Decide Ed app or program to help students and families?
You mean partners that are using it currently?
Yes.
Yes. So Green Dot Public Schools in Southern California using it. We also have college access orgs that we are partnering working with that are using it or trying to as well. So Richmond Promise, College is Real. There's pilot programs with Scholar Match and other organizations we work with like College Track at different sites. Did that help answer the question?
Thank you.
Okay. Yep. So again, just to highlight this point, when we're talking about having these important conversations, it's really first having that conversation as an advisor with the student and how do we frame that those points, right? So the big one is having the students reflect what is the value they're looking to get from going to college, because that's an important question for them to answer, because that should be their North Star. Are they going there for a specific reason? Is it for their career aspirations, right? And are those values reflected in their personal top 3 college fit factors they're looking through? So within the tool, they can distinguish that by saying, I want to be at a campus that diversity is a priority for me, or graduating early and on time, that's a priority for me, right? So I can look at the graduation rate, or affordability is my #1 priority. And then this sets up the conversations that the student then can have with their parents and their families to showcase to them why they're making these decisions and how these schools fit into these decision factors. One thing we do want to make sure as a tool and as an organization of having the experience of working with students as well is really giving them a way to keep track of all this information in one place. I know when we've discussed with students, a lot of them have spreadsheets and they're keeping multiple applications. They're doing their research on Google. They're doing their research on College Greenlight. So what we designed with our tool is to have a place that it all can live in one place. They can get all the data insight they may need, and then they can take that information to have the further conversation that they need to really come into a decision that they feel super confident about and can move forward, knowing all the things that they need to be ready for. So it's having them dig deeper to learn more about each school's diversity, graduation rate, and more. There was a question, is there a section on scholarship list? So currently we don't do scholarships on DecideEd. We do have guys that reference it and we link out to certain scholarships as well.
Great. So we know we've gotten a little bit of questions around Decided for Advisors. So we do have a tool that helps support the student-facing tool that we just spoke about. I could walk folks through it really quickly. I know we're coming up on time. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Great. So student-facing tool will again tell students like their college affordability options. And as an advisor, you can use this database, essentially this data visualization, to help understand where your students are at in the process. So for example, Brian, it looks like Brian has uploaded an award letter. So maybe when I meet with Brian, I want to discuss that. And I could see which schools are most affordable for them based on this filter option here. And again, this tool itself talks to the student side tool, and you have the ability to invite students to your organization by filling this out, and students can join and use the tool as well. Other things, again, we could filter by students where they're currently at in the progress. We've heard from a lot of advisors, it's really important. You all have very large caseload. So it's really important to kind of understand where students are at in their process so you can best support their needs no matter where they are, but also best support what needs that they might have with their families. And so if a student is at enrollment process or the enrollment decision, you could suggest talking points for that they might have with their family, but also again, Decided gives you those suggested talking points within our guides. You have the ability to manage groups within your larger student list. And you can base that off of any varying, organizational things that you would like. And also, if you collaborate with other advisors or you yourself are a larger organization, you have the ability to, as an admin user, see other advisors and where they're at, how many students they have, et cetera. And also, wanted to note that you can take notes and write about like a student's like meeting potentially that you had. And I know I'm jumping so fast through this. So you could write notes specifically on a student, perhaps something that you just spoke with them about or want to follow up with them. And also lastly, you have the ability to notify students within the app itself. So if you want to notify all of your students, like, hey, like FAFSA deadline was extended, please get those in ASAP, et cetera. You have the ability to do that here, as well as a really great component is exporting reports based on, again, your students, where they're at. And if you needed to show those reports to certain other organizations and talk about other data, we do have that ability here. Let me
I just want to add, because there was a couple of questions in the chat. When it comes to the advisor dashboard, you can have an individual one where you're just working with your students. If you have an organization account, you can add as many advisors, you can organize them in any type of group format that you would like. So there's no restriction on that. You're able to invite students through an email invitation through the app. So they get it in their email. Students can also just sign up on their own. Then later on, you can give them the group code that you created, so then they can join your group. So all of it is accessible to the advisor, but also independently, students can always use this tool on their own. It's always better from our perspective, which is why we want to partner always with college access orgs and advisors to work alongside with the student, because they get that extra support and they get those conversations going alongside that, right? So it's great that they see this information, but they need a thought partner to help them make sense of this and then figure out what their next steps are. So a combination of advisor and student is the most optimal area we want the tool to be used in.
Great.
And I think the other questions have already been answered, but yes, this includes all 4-year and 2-year colleges within the US. So it's not restricted to just California if someone had that question. And we are doing 2-year colleges as well.
And I
Yes,
will
as long
note-
as they report their data to iPads, they'll be in the tool. So a lot of the underlying data, grad rates, things like that is being pulled from iPads. So as long as they're reporting that to iPads, which they have to if they're a Title IV school, they'll be in the tool.
I will say, since we didn't have too much time to go into the tool in depth, we do have an onboarding process where we have you have certain tool tips, again, like I showed in the student side of the tool, where you can best utilize the tool to best fit your needs. Lastly, what I didn't get to touch on the student app, we do have links directly out to the schools, like financial aid office, admissions office, et cetera. So any of those questions, like jumping around as a student looking for a college, like all these important links. And I love the suggestion of the having other factors that can promote a better sense of belonging for a student, like student resource centers, et cetera. Anything else you want to have me highlight?
John, we have a question in the chat really quick. Do you offer trainings to organizations in terms of how to utilize the tool?
Yes, we'll have our contact information at the end of the slide. Feel free to reach out to us. Myself as a partnership team, along with our product team, can set up opportunities for organizations to get you onboarded, to get you trained, and think through some of your implementation. We've done this with some of the CalSoap sites as well. So as long as you're reaching out to us, we're happy to coordinate and work alongside you.
And then we also have someone in the chat says they created an account and was automatically given an organization name. Is there a way to change the organization name? So if you're looking to create an account for your organization, you should reach out to John and we can make sure we get that set up for you. When you create an account, you'll always be initially create an account for you as an individual. So an individual advisor working with students. If you're looking to be able to invite other advisors to that account, to that organization and use it for an organization or a school, you'll just need to reach out to us. I'll put John's email in the chat and it'll be at the end of the presentation as well.
Yeah. As we get closer to the end, I just want to do a quick summary of what we just went through. So the advisor component is really to deepen support through the college enrollment decision and the finances, and really to enable you as the advisor, but also the students have timely conversations that are important, and then save time on the administrative task of data collection, because we know a lot of the work that goes into it is collecting a lot of information, see where your students are at, what are their award letters. We want to take away some of that time frame so you can focus on a lot of the one-on-ones that you can have with your students, since we know that is the most impactful time that you can have with a student. And then finally, just to give you access to the data so you can make programmatic decisions, as well as support that you're providing to your students as well. And then lastly, just wanted to mention within our guides, more specifically this time frame in this season, when it comes to understanding your life budget, those are one of the big ones that students are either misunderstanding or not really aware of when it comes to health fee waivers and other things that can save them cost and money to make their colleges even more affordable. That's where our guides come in handy. Advisors can reference that to the students, as well as students on their own going in to check that out for next steps, as well as how to get their financial aid on time, because we know sometimes our students are missing these timeframes, which means a delay in their financial aid can really get them to stop out or drop out of the college process, which we've seen happen. We want to try and support to eliminate that from continuing to happen. We want to open up to any more questions that may be happening either in the chat or going off mic as well. Here's my contact information for those of you who want to reach out. And there's also the contact information for Jean Marie as well. In the chat, would you suggest we give this to our juniors? Yeah, so it really depends on how you as a program want to introduce this types of process, right? So if you're already have the process where you're having them search, do research, our tool would be great for them to use to get comfortable, especially during their senior year. They know how to use it fully. So yeah, I would definitely recommend it with juniors. If you're a program who is also starting even earlier with 10th grade or 9th grade to explore and think about colleges, you can do that earlier. It's just that the most optimal time will be their senior year when they're making this critical decision, but that does not mean that they can't use it earlier. So there's no restriction when they can start using it. And Jean Marie just put in the chat also just the opportunity for you to speak with us as well. We do a lot of interviews with advisors and students, again, because we created this tool to support both the advisor and student. Before we went into making the tool itself, we were also supporting students. So we were the advisors. We want to really just make sure the tools that we create, the features that we built in are going to be something that's going to be useful and make things a lot easier. And so we do a lot of these feedbacks throughout the year. So if you're interested to ever sit on these research questions, feel free to fill this out because we would love to hear from you.
And we do compensate you for your time. And we know we have 3 minutes left to kind of wrap up. But thank you all so much for coming to our session. And if you have any further questions, yeah, please send us an email. We are super interested to get in touch with you all. And then also check out the tool for yourself and make accounts and send them to your students so we can better help.
All right, thank you so much, John and Jean Marie, for sharing the expertise with all of our participants this morning, and as well, Ben, for answering all the questions from our participants, which is really great. Please know that all the presentation materials are going to be available on our Shed event platform. The recordings will be posted on CSAC, so we'll continue to provide support when needed. Reach out to us when possible for the upcoming application completion requirement. There is a 15-minute break before going into the next session, so please use this time to have the little break. You will not be entering the room right away, just until the next session starts. But if you do have a question, please reach out to us, or like the previous email for Jamina L. Cole at rcoe.com. .us. But should you have any questions, I'll stay behind another minute or so. But other than that, have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
That's an interesting question, Nicole. John, do you see this one?
Yeah, so Just from a data perspective, obviously college costs are changing year over year. And so if your student has award letters from last year, if they put them into the tool now, the costs are still going to be pretty similar. They won't have changed a ton, but they might have shifted a little bit. It would still give you a good comparison between those colleges that you all were looking at last year. And then also, as your student gets those awards or gets their award letter again for their second year, you could actually put that into the tool as well and kind of get some feedback on that letter and help you think about how much your student's going to have to pay year over year, since again, those costs are changing. Some of the aid programs change a little bit year over year. The amount that you're eligible for might change. So yeah, you can absolutely upload your older award letters into it or re-upload your award letter from the school that your student's enrolled in.
Of course.